Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review.
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Detroit Lions versus the Atlanta Falcons in this Week 8 matchup, which you can catch on October 26th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And that'll be aired on your local Fox affiliates, as these two teams are going to be playing over in London across the pond. That's why they have that early start time, as London's about 5 hours ahead of New York. So you have the Lions, who are coming into this game with a record of 5-2. They started off the season by beating the Giants on Monday night at home there. And then they went to Carolina and they lost to the Panthers. Then they beat the Packers in Detroit. And then they went to New York and beat the Jets. They lost to Buffalo in Detroit. And then they went to Minnesota and beat the Vikings. And then last week they beat the Saints by just 1 point, as they came from behind to win that game. And now they're facing the Falcons over there in London. The Falcons started off by beating the Saints in the first week in overtime by a field goal. Then they went to Cincinnati and they lost. Then they beat up on the Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football, as they had a record-setting night. Devin Hester broke Deion Sanders' record, but ever since then, they were 2-1 at that point, the Falcons, and they have not won a game since, as they lost 4 in a row, losing on the road to Minnesota and the Giants, then losing at home to the Bears, and then last week they went to Baltimore and lost, and now they face the Lions across the pond. So it looks like it's going to be another loss for the Falcons. They have got more injuries on their offensive line. Their center has now gone down, and anybody who knows football knows that the center is really where everything begins. I mean, that's where the guy snaps the ball, but more than that, the center is kind of like the quarterback of the offensive line. Games are won and lost in the trenches, and if you don't have it up front in your line, then you're going to be in big trouble. And the center, to not have him there to be able to call adjustments on the offensive line for defensive schemes the center would be calling out, that's going to be a real, just a big trouble for Atlanta, is they're going to be facing one of the top defenses in the NFL. The Lions are very good up front on their defensive line. They've got one of the top defensive lines in all of football. Let's actually go inside the numbers and let's see how these two teams match up. When it comes to passing offense, the Lions are the 13th most proficient passing offense in yards per game. The Falcons are the 5th. So the Falcons have a really good passing game. We look at passing defense, though. The Lions are the 6th best passing defense in yards allowed. The Falcons are 29th. So even as good as the Falcons are at passing the ball, they cannot stop other teams from passing the ball. And the Lions, they've been struggling, being that they haven't had Megatron healthy, but Stafford still finds a way to spread the ball out. He had a big week last week. He's starting to get things going, even without Megatron, and their pass defense is one of the tops in the NFL, and so the edge in the passing game clearly goes to the Lions. Then we look at the running attacks of both teams. The Lions are 31st in rushing yards per game, and the Falcons are 24th. So both of these teams struggle to run the ball. And we look at the running defenses of these two teams. The Lions are the 3rd best rushing defense, and the Falcons are 27th. So the Lions, even though they're one of the worst teams when it comes to running the ball, they're one of the best teams when it comes to stopping other teams from running the ball. And the Falcons, they are just abysmal in the running game, period. They can't run the ball and they can't stop the run. So again, the edge goes to the Lions. Then we look at points for and against. The Lions are 25th in the NFL in points scored per game, and the Falcons are 12th. So Lions have been struggling to put points on the board, again, with the loss of Megatron, as he may or may not be playing over in London. It's still a question mark. We won't really know until game time. But the Falcons, they do put up some points. I mean, when they get going, they can definitely rack up the score. I mean, we saw they put up 56 against Tampa. They put up 28 against Minnesota, but they put up 37 against the Saints. But then when you look at their losses, they only scored 10 against the Bengals, 20 against the Giants, 13 against the Bears, and 7 against the Ravens. But then we look at the points against, and the Lions, although they struggle to put points on the board, they are the number 2 defense in points allowed, and the Falcons are 30th. So although the Falcons can put some points on the board, they cannot stop teams from scoring to save their life. And so again, you got to give the edge to the Lions. It's a little bit closer right here when it comes to this, because you see that the Lions, they're 25th at scoring versus the 30th defense in points allowed. Obviously, the edge goes there to the Lions. And then you see the Falcons, the 12th most proficient at scoring, but the Lions are 2nd in points allowed. Again, favor Lions. So the Lions have it on all the matchups. Really, in this game, I'm going with the Lions. It's over in London. Of course, I'm not sure how that's going to exactly factor in. I think that it might actually tend to drive the score up a little, possibly, and maybe we might see a lot of passing in this game from both teams. So we might see a shootout between Stafford and Ryan, as they're both very capable of putting up yards and putting up points. But the Lions' defense is just too good. They're one of the best defenses in all of football, and they'll be able to hold the Falcons to enough points to where, you saw what Baltimore did to them last week. I would imagine the Lions should be able to do a similar number on the Falcons' offense. They're really, suffering from the fact that they can't run the ball. The only way they're going to have any success here is, they got to somehow get some kind of running game going, and if they can, just kind of dink and dunk it off on some short passes, kind of chip away, but the Falcons have a chance. They do have those deep threats too, so they could, air it out, and they could make it interesting. But the Lions, though, their defense, like I said, they're just so good on defense, and their offensive numbers for Detroit are actually pretty bad, especially considering where they should be, or where most people would expect them to be. You expect their offensive production to be a lot higher, especially in the passing game. But of course, without Megatron, Calvin Johnson Jr., that's been really why they've been suffering in their passing game. But Golden Tate just had the biggest game of his career. On some teams he would be a number 1. So it's not like they don't have talent. They do have talent. So they just need to get things going on the ground, and that's where maybe the Falcons can make this game, competitive, is if they can shut down that running game of Detroit, which has been struggling, although they've been coming on a little bit lately, but not so much. Last week they still, struggled against the Saints to run the ball, but they were running a little bit against Minnesota, and maybe they get it going against the Falcons, because the Falcons have such a poor, run defense. The Falcons' defense is just almost non-existent. So, the Lions should be able to put up enough numbers to win this game. Even if the Lions only put up like 10 points, that should be enough. But I expect them to put up at least 20. I would even think that the Lions could put up maybe 30 points, or more. The Falcons, I don't think they'll be able to keep up with that. Like I said, they're going to get shut down. Detroit's defense is just too strong. They're really good up front, and they got good linebackers. Even with Tulloch going down, DeAndre Levy is having a great season, and their secondary is playing excellent too. So they do not let teams get much yards, and they do not let teams score. So they got such a great defense that I think they're going to really put that on display for all the fans over there in England. So they're going to get to see one of the top defenses in action. Too bad. Hopefully, we'll know in terms of Megatron. Hopefully, we get to see him. Too bad if we don't. But and same thing. It kind of sucks that the Falcons are so banged up on their offensive line. It'd be better to see this game with everybody healthy. But either way, I think the Lions win this one, and they should win it. Pretty easily. As you see too, the Lions won. They're on a winning streak. They won 2 games in a row. They won 4 out of their last 5. The Falcons have lost 4 in a row. And, they're just going to continue to lose games, especially with no help on that offensive line. Matt Ryan continues to be under pressure in their passing the game is just going to suffer more and more each week. It looked like a promising season for Atlanta too. Back in September, things were looking good, but then injuries to that offensive line have really just taken them out of contention. Sad to say for those fans in Atlanta. But Detroit, they've got, good news coming is Megatron, if he's not in this game, he will be back, after their bye week. So after this game, Detroit has the bye week. Then when they play Miami in Detroit, Megatron should be back. But as for this one, I think Detroit wins it over there in London. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Interested to hear and read all of your thoughts and ideas. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit the like button. How else would we know you enjoyed the show if you don't hit that like button? And if you like this content, make sure to subscribe, because we bring you upon further reviews and recaps of every single game in the NFL season all the way through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. We're also covering the MLB playoffs and the World Series. So check that out as well. And we bring you our weekly show, The Wedge, where we do quick picks, fantasy fortune, fantasy football picks, a weekly rewind, and the Thursday night upon further review. So keep an eye out for that. So I always try to get that up before Thursday night, and sometimes as early as Tuesday. So thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a great day and have a great weekend and enjoy all of the sports.